Hey you guys, what's going on? It's another idol. We are back inside of Destiny, and today we are going to be talking about the impending Gjallarhorn nerf. Now, the Gjallarhorn is the weapon that most players cover in the game, and it's the weapon that Bungie have admitted to themselves. It's a little overpowered, but in September it's going to get a nerf, and it's kind of sent the community into a frenzy. And some players have kind of gone a bit too far and said that they are quitting the game and they've dismantled all of their weapons. It's a video game. That's my stance on it. Chill out. But to be honest, the Gjallarhorn simply overshadows every other heavy weapon, and its power is kind of unmatched. The base impact of the weapon itself is already pretty strong, and the Wolfpack rounds are what really delivers the punch when it comes to the Gjallarhorn itself. Personally, I welcome the change. It will enable the game to be more balanced, and my main concern with this is the people that don't have the Gjallarhorn yet. You know, people that don't have the Gjallarhorn know all too well that when new content rolls around, LFG type sites are littered with people stating that in order to join my group you need to have a Gjallarhorn, otherwise you're not getting in to play the content, which is just unfair. This type of behavior has created a rift, and you know, it leaves people out of the content. Not for long. It's usually for a few hours whilst they try and find non-elitist players to play with, but you know, it's just one of those things that has happened. This weapon has created a rift in the community, and it's also bred some of the worst kinds of players. It's bred people that are generally quite lazy and don't want the challenge, and it's bred people that are elitist when it comes to weapons, and that's sort of the thing that Bungie are trying to combat here with this nerf. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that not all players fit into these two categories. That's not what I'm saying at all. As with most things, they are a vocal minority, and they are very vocal. But that is, I'm just going to leave that there. But to be honest, with these types of people, it isn't their fault, and I kind of see their point. When it comes to the encounters and the fights themselves, the bosses are pretty lackluster, and quite frankly, they're just bullet sponges. What I think needs to be done is there needs to be more bosses with more interesting mechanics, and these need to be implemented soon, i.e. when the Taken King is launched, and I think that's something that Bungie is going to try and implement with the new raid. They say it's their biggest and best raid to date, so only time will tell, but if that's something to go on, then hopefully they've taken what they've seen has happened in year 1 and they are using it as feedback, and in year 2 they're going to use that and create bigger and better bosses in not only strikes but in raids, etc, etc. So yeah, the following things need to happen. Players need to work together to solve an objective, so there needs to be more puzzle type mechanics implemented for you to be able to damage the bosses themselves, and overall the bosses just need to be generally more challenging. Right now we have bosses that stand around or walk around the map and they just shoot you, and they're not challenging at all. There's nothing interesting that you have to do to be able to damage them, apart from Atheon, where you have the times vengeance buff. Again, there's just nothing there from stopping this type of activity from happening. But I digress. I understand why people are angry at this. I understand why people are frustrated. And I understand where people are coming from. People that don't have the weapon are angry because they feel like they're not going to be able to experience Gjallarhorn at its former glory or full potential. And the current players that have it are worried that it's going to completely destroy its effectiveness. But to be honest, we don't know how big the nerf is actually going to be. It could be a case of it being 10, 20% and it not really have that much of a noticeable effect, but it has a noticeable effect for Bungie to, you know, nerf it to that level. It adds a bit more longevity to the time to kill. And that's the thing. Going back to players and the rift that it's caused, Bungie have been they've not been really that vocal, but a few employees have said that they've not liked the rift that the Gjallarhorn has created. And I kind of feel that it's their fault, to be honest. Why have they left it this long to nerf, you know, what is essentially the most powerful weapon in the game? They were well aware of its power. They were well aware of how quickly it could burn enemies, and we had a weapon patch in February, which was the last one, and it wasn't introduced. Well, the nerf wasn't introduced then. It's now being introduced at the end of year one, which for me is kind of confusing. I don't know why Bungie have decided to do it that way. Yeah, I'm just really confused with their decision to nerf it at the end of year one rather than nerf it towards the beginning of year one, because they could have solved a hell of a lot of grief that they've got over this quite early on, and people would have forgotten about it, and the game would have generally been more balanced. There would have been no burning Skolas within 30 seconds within the first week, and it would have been a much more challenging fight. And another thing that I've been seeing a lot of is people have been asking for other weapons to be buffed, to be brought up to its level or closer to its level. And this just isn't a good idea in general. Buffing everything else would create something called power creep, and that's just going to create more issues than it solves. Specifically for like PvP, it would make the time to kill a lot lower, which just isn't how Destiny was supposed to be played. If you played the beta, the time to kill in PvP was incredibly high. It took a lot more for you to kill a player, which was much more enjoyable. It was different. Whereas if you play something like COD, the time to kill is very, very short. But again, I digress. That's a different video and a whole different discussion altogether. That is something I don't want to get into in this video. But again, it would introduce a power creep kind of issue, and it just would not be good for the game at all. If you don't know what power creep is, I would highly suggest you go and look it up. Google is your friend. So, I mean, that's kind of where I stand. I support the nerf because it is overpowered. The Wolfpack rounds do need to be toned down. They simply just make PvE a breeze. It is incredibly easy to, you know, shoot a few rockets, sit back, shoot a few rockets at a boss, and just wait for his health to just drain. And you can physically see his health drain, the boss's health drain. Especially Valastark, now his health has been nerfed. You can see his health bar drain incredibly quickly once you pop it a few Gjallarhorns his way. It's pretty astounding to watch, really, and I think that it encourages lazy gameplay rather than the challenging gameplay that was promised when Destiny was launched. And I also think that it's good for future content. We don't want a situation again, or I personally don't want a situation again, where we get a new raid type activity and within the first week people have already discovered a way to burn the boss within less than 30 seconds. It just doesn't add to the challenge, and it just doesn't add to the fun factor. I like a challenge. I like to go through these encounters, learn the mechanics, play them the way that they were supposed to be played, and, you know, really enjoy the hard work that has gone into making the raid itself, or the activity itself. So at the moment of this recording and the publishing of this video, we don't know the following in terms of the nerf. We don't know how big the nerf is actually going to be. We don't know what kind of percentage they are reducing the damage. I can't really see them going above 30%, and that's pushing it for me. The Gjallarhorn is supposed to be a strong, competent weapon, and it has a legacy within the game. You read the lore behind the Gjallarhorn, and you know, it describes it as being this, you know, really powerful weapon with a really long legacy behind it. And if they went too far with the nerf, it would kind of negate that legacy that it has behind it, and it would just totally destroy the lore behind it as well. And I don't think Bungie want to do that. We also do not know currently how exotics are going to be treated. How current exotics are going to be treated in year 2. We don't know if there's going to be an ascension system, or whether we can have our exotics up to the year 2 power level. So, quite frankly, there could be newer exotics within the Taken King that are just as powerful or even better than the Gjallarhorn. Bungie have stated that they are going to be releasing a bigger arsenal of weapons than the vanilla game. And that includes exotics as well. So we're going to have a lot more weapons to play with. We're going to have more exotics to find and play with. And quite frankly, we just don't know what's coming at this stage. And I think people have kind of jumped the gun a little bit too quick. Yes, they are nerfing a weapon that you love, but the nerf is going to happen so close to the Taken King that it's probably not going to matter anyway. There are probably going to be weapons within the Taken King that far outshine the Gjallarhorn, and we simply don't know whether we can ascend these exotics that we've currently got anyway. So, you know, it could be jumping the gun and making, you know, a mountain out of a molehill essentially. So, yeah, but one thing that I also want to mention in this video is that we know Bungie collects a lot of data on weapons and their performance. They've been very open with us regarding this data. They've shared various things, and one of the issues that they tried to solve in the 1.1.1.1 patch, you know, the one in February, was it was trying to change the current meta. Surus regime dominated the Crucible. This time, Thorn is dominating the Crucible. Gjallarhorns and Black Hammers and Fatebringers are dominating PvE. And they're just trying to mix it up. I think what they are trying to do as a whole is they are trying to reclassify the weapon types to make them more situational. So you really have to think about your loadout. When you're going into one of the new strikes, or when you're going into the new raid, you may have to change your weapon loadout several times to get through specific stages. I don't think it will be to that extent, but one of the big things that they've mentioned is range and damage drop-off, and I think that it's going to play a more significant part the further that Destiny advances. So, just to wrap this video up, I'm not worried about the Gjallarhorn nerf, purely because we don't know all of the information. I wish that they had been more transparent with the figure and they'd released, you know, what the percentage was, and it would have saved a lot of grief that has come their way. They would have received, no doubt they would have received that grief anyway, as they're nerfing one of the most powerful weapons in the game. But again, we could be making all of this fuss about nothing if it turns out that the nerf isn't that significant. So my advice to you guys is just to wait and see what is actually happening. I'm not too worried because it's going to be too close to the Taken King anyway. like I said, we could have a lot of new weapons that are exceptionally great, and it could outshine the Gjallarhorn itself. But again, I understand where people are coming from. They've worked hard to get these weapons, or they've waited patiently for RNG to provide them with these weapons, and they feel that Bungie are taking them away from them, which it just simply isn't the case. I hope you guys see my point of view, and I respect everybody's point of view on this issue. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I hope that a lot of people have made it through this video. It's quite a lengthy one, as this discussion is very much ongoing within the Destiny community, as well as all of the other weapons and the weapon classes that are being rebalanced. A lot of people are not happy with how Bungie have handled it and how they are handling it. So let's talk about it in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. Are you happy about it? Are you pretty pissed? Are you on the fence? You know, let's start a discussion. Let's have an informed discussion. Any trolls that, you know, are going to be inflammatory are just going to be straight up removed from the comment section, because I don't want to have that on this channel. So please respect that. I want to thank you guys for watching. Let's start a discussion, and I'll see you guys next time back inside of Destiny.